to watch that account. Meantime, as Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump prepare to defend their economic plans in the first presidential debate on Monday night, our next guest says neither candidate has a plan to reduce the debt, and one plan would carry a much higher economic cost. A report from the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget finds that Clinton's plans would increase the debt by $200 billion over the next decade to roughly 86% of GDP, whereas Trump's plans, while improved since June, would still increase the debt by $5.3 trillion to about 105% of GDP. Joining us this morning is Maya MacGuineas, the president of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Maya, good morning. It's great to have you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
What's most important for people to know both about their plans to handle the debt and what they're likely to say about it on Monday night?
So I think the most important thing as a starting point is that the state of the debt is already quite bad. The debt is at near record levels. It's the highest it's been as a share of the economy since World War II. Deficit is growing, and the debt is projected to grow faster than the economy forever. And yet what we have is two candidates, neither of whom so far has put forth a plan that would actually put a single penny towards slowing the growth of that national debt, which is really important for growing the economy, helping economic security, the next generation, preparing for the next recession. So in so many ways, it's kind of the foundation of the economy. So what we're hoping is that we'll start to move towards hearing from the candidates that this is not only an important priority, but that they would put forth a plan that would actually have policies to reduce the debt gradually and in thought-out ways, but as part of an economic growth strategy. So far, we haven't heard that.
Well, what's been the most promising germ of a promise in that direction? I mean, is it Trump's penny plan? On either side, what's been the most constructive argument you've heard?
So I think what has been useful is that on Hillary Clinton's side, she has been very, very focused on paying for her new initiatives. So if you're in a hole, the first rule, stop digging. She wouldn't make the situation worse, but she wouldn't make it better. I would say both candidates have focused on the importance of growing the economy, but they haven't recognized that getting the debt under control is a huge piece of growing the economy. And we need to have realistic understanding that our growth expectations, we need to do better than we're currently doing. But we have a lot of challenges because we have the aging of the population. Demographics are working against us. Productivity is slow, and we can't rely on overly exuberant promises of growth. That's something that we have heard from the Trump campaign, which recognizes deficits and debt matter, but I think is exaggerating the of how they'll be able to grow the economy. We need to have more realistic promises in terms of that.
I'm not even sure, Maya, that I'm getting a message of growth from both campaigns. And I know you're careful because you're a bipartisan organization. Yeah. Trump's growth plan, lower taxes, fewer regulations, better trade deals. What's the Hillary Clinton growth message? What is the narrative there?
So it's very interesting. So I think Donald Trump's growth plan is about tax reform, regulatory reform. I would say the problem with his promises of growth is that higher debt and changes in immigration and trade might not help the economy. So on net, we don't know what the growth effects would be. The Clinton campaign focuses much, much more on using the government to promote growth. So they have initiatives on infrastructure, for instance, but it's more of a growth proposal that government could help. And I don't think either of them has a comprehensive growth strategy, which, again, I would say has to include a sensible fiscal policy that people really can feel confident will grow the economy. So I hope we'll hear more realistic promises about the various pieces of what would be necessary across the board. And again, we have to be realistic. We did not reform entitlements. Baby boomers are moving into retirement, and so we have more challenges on growth than we did a decade or two ago.
But Maya, back to the headline numbers. I mean, 200 billion versus 5.3 trillion. There's no real comparison there.
No, there's not any real comparison. The Trump campaign has a plan that would, under any realistic growth scenarios, balloon the debt quite dramatically. I will say it's much better than the plan that they had before. They've scaled back the tax cuts, and that's a step in the right direction, and I hope we'll see more of that. But they would still increase the debt significantly, whereas the Clinton campaign wouldn't make it better, wouldn't make it worse. They have a lot of spending initiatives, but they are paid for. It's kind of a pay-as-you-go mentality. We need a lot more to get a handle on the debt, but certainly the right first step is not to make it worse, which she would not.
You know, we're coming off a week where we all talked about potential interest rate hikes. And although no one believes rates are going to go much higher anytime soon, I wonder if you can remind viewers of what that effect that would have on our ability to pay the debt back.
You know, it's a great point because we've heard so much of interest rates are low. It's almost this free lunch argument. Don't worry about any of this. The U.S. is in a relatively vulnerable position because we have borrowed so much and we have structural borrowing. And if and when interest rates go up, let's say they go up by 1 percentage point over the 10-year period, that would add $1.3 trillion to the interest payments on the debt. So this is a huge vulnerability that we have, that when rates go up, our debt payments will go up. I don't care if you're conservative or liberal, spending more money on interest payments means there's less for tax cuts or spending increases or getting a handle on the debt. So that's something we don't want to be so vulnerable to, those increasing rates, which are certainly likely to happen at some point.
Viewers should definitely take a look at your work. Maya, it's great to have you. Thanks again.
Thanks so much.
Maya MacGuineas with the Committee for a Responsible